Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am Daniel. I'm the founder of Startup CPG. If you are watching us on YouTube today, make sure you hit the subscribe button to know. And for anybody who wants to learn when all of our recordings go live, that's what you do. Subscribe on our YouTube, youtube.com/@Startup CPG. Today is a doozy. I am super excited about this. And I got really interested in sharing learnings about the Sprouts Innovation Set because when I was a brand, I did it. And I know how big that PO was. When it came, it was monstrous. It had such a big impact for us for the year, but it also was incredibly anxiety inducing because they like took all this inventory for us. And then I didn't know if it was selling through and I didn't know what was going to happen. Are we going to be liable? Like, what's going on here? And it also is this magic opportunity that just kind of dropped in our laps. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to reproduce it. Now it's a much more structured program. And, brands always ask in the Slack, like, how should I support it? How much does it cost? Should I do
Mhm.
coupons? Can you do Can you price promote? I don't know. And then also importantly, well, am I going to get on shelf if I spend all this money and do all this stuff? And there are real data points out there. And, Luke was one of the first people who clued me in just because he's so intimately involved with Sprouts business. So this is the right guy. You all are in the right place. We are going to get into it today. And so I would encourage you, we have a lot of slides to get through. We also have David from the Grassroots team who's going to talk to us
Mhm.
about demos, who I did demos with at Sprouts, and we had a lot of cool learnings. We're going to probably not answer every question as it comes through, but I would post them in the Q&A
Mm.
function. And then in the chat, let's just be nice and vocal and have a good time here today. Okay, so Mr. Luke, I'm going to pass over to you for the intro. And
Manual.
thank you for this, by the way. This is incredible.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this for the community. And ideally, the Sprouts Innovation Set is something that is not opaque, right? And our job today is to make this really accessible. I believe we can get through the slides in about 20, 25 minutes, and there'll be a short presentation on David's amazing demo company, and then we'll be plenty of time for some questions. So let's just jump in. Let's
Let's
see
do it. We've
here.
got 207 people on right now, so we'll definitely get some good
Welcome.
questions.
Welcome. And so it
Hello,
might be helpful
everybody.
to understand my background. So I'm going to do 1 minute of that. I used to work at a company at the time I was 21 called Monterey Provision based in San Diego. I started growing up in that organization. In my early 30s, I had this amazing opportunity to purchase the company in a leveraged buyout from the founder. And he had about 100% of the stock, $100,000 down of a $30 million food distributor. And then my team and I scaled that across the country. And we did that scaling happened around Sprouts. So I was involved with Sprouts since store four. And my whole company built into a national distributor because of Sprouts. And we serviced other retailers as well. I definitely have been around for a while. I sold my company to KeHE in 2016 and was a leader in the fresh division for a couple of years before I went to Jimbo's Naturally as president and started Vdriven about 6 years ago. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. I've been in the last 2 years a professor at the University of San Diego on supply chain, where I love teaching my students about the food system that they have no idea about. And I also host the Reconnected podcast. Let's go on. So today's agenda. So I'll just dig right in to be efficient. So about the Innovation Center. So you have an emerging brand, and ideally you don't have any national retailers. You can have regional ones. In general, the goal is here that you're not everywhere yet, right? You're not in Kroger, you're not in Walmart, you're not in Target. You're ideally truly an emerging brand, and generally, it's okay to have a few regional retailers, even a region where you're generally stronger in. And this can vacillate based on how much they like the product, but it's really meant to be younger brands. Oftentimes, it's brands that have little data, so we're really depending on a team of people at Sprouts who are really good, are savants, if you will, and being able to figure out what products are actually going to be the future of categories going forward. The resources, and we'll talk more about that as we go. But you need the resources to support either a regional or national launch, and that leaves a lot of questions. Like Daniel said, like what do I need to do? Like once I'm on shelf, and then there's a desire, like a really strong desire you must have to win at the second largest natural chain in America. If all those things are true, I think this is right for you. And I also want to, before I get deeper into this, say what I'm going to share with you today. This is not Sprout speaking to you. This is Luke from Vdriven, someone who's like has a lot of experience working in this space. But these are my opinions and my observations and what I've seen work. And it has to be really clear that this is not Sprout speaking to you today. The foraging program. So The idea here is first to market or early to market opportunities, disruptive and breakthrough innovations. It's a test and learn program. So the idea here is that everything's not going to succeed to make it into the mainline set and be on shelf on an ongoing basis. By definition, if you're pushing the edge, some things won't work, and that's okay. This program, the majority of brands actually will not end up into the mainline set, and I'll give you a percentage later in this presentation of how many actually do make it. It's ideally first to market and oftentimes Sprouts exclusive items. It's a 90-day trial period. And people ask, I work with a number of brands. We have had a lot of success in innovation set. And it's like, well, I'm not on shelf 60 days in at a certain store. And I'm like, that's a win. So what happens is the team at Sprouts tries to figure out how much demand there's going to be for your product over a 90-day period. The goal is to run out by 90 days. If you run out in 60 days, you know what that means? You had great velocity. That's like, hallelujah. Praise the Lord. That is really good stuff. And some DCs will run out before other DCs. This is about hitting like a composite velocity number across the country, not like being on every single store shelf every single time like that a consumer comes there. So I think that's a big misnomer people have, Daniel, is that they assume it's got to be 90 days in order to win. You don't. If you had 30 days and you're gone, yes, celebrate. There's no
I'll
free
also,
fill. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
also, just on that point, maybe it's more structured now, but like in my case, they actually took us like twice, like without even really telling us. They kind of extended it, and then they were trying to get rid of the inventory. By the way, I don't know if you're trolling me with this photo because that's actually, I was the CEO for Machu Picchu, and I can see it on this picture. This was from like a year and a half ago.
We're
So,
very
and it,
intentful, Daniel.
yeah, and we did not get the reset. It was still, I actually still would have done the experience because it was a huge PO. It's
Mm,
tons of visibility with Sprouts consumers who are high-end
mm.
consumers. And unfortunately, we didn't make the reset. But I mean, it looked very cool, right?
It
As a
looked really
DP
good.
photo.
This is
Yeah.
actually this is a perfect set if you look at it. Like everything is based.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, so no initial free fill. This is a really big deal, right? Because generally more and more I'm finding that Sprouts is asking for a 2 case free fill, right? If you're going to the mainline set. So to be able to test this and figure out whether it actually works and not to do a free fill, that's a big win. I'll talk about working with either Pod or Sprouts, sorry, or KeHE further on. So we'll get deeper into that. There's no at-shelf promotions allowed. So no TPRs, no shelf tags. They'll have an allowance. It's meant to be effectively an EDLP program. And there's also, this is really important, there's no guarantee. No guarantee of on-shelf placement after the trial period. And I'll go more into that in future slides. So let's dig in. The key area Sprouts considers, and this is
Oh, maybe
again,
can I just say one thing? By the
yeah,
way, that
yeah,
photo, just so everyone knows, on the other side of that thing are a bunch of snacks. So that's like a heavy beverage
yeah,
side of it,
yeah.
but the other bit there are tons of snacks as
It's
well.
not just about beverage. That's sure. And then sometimes
Yeah,
there's themes. I think there's a theme coming out soon with freeze dried. I think it'll be next month.
cool.
So just they get to have a lot of fun. Um, Key areas. So again, this is what we've noticed, right? This is not coming from Sprouts, but what we've noticed is on the innovation side over here, being in the forefront of market trends and category disruptions. We're looking, we're trying to like hit the millennials and Gen Z, right? Getting the cool kids to shop at Sprouts is my sense of what they're trying to do. On packaging, I've noticed that certifications, attribute callouts, unique branding, things like that really matter. But I've also noticed is that the packaging doesn't have to be perfect. By definition, the brand is emergent. If they had it all figured out, right, then they would be at a different stage. And the reality is every brand I've worked with, I mean, we're probably going to redo packaging once, twice, 3 times the first 2 years. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Ideally though, a consumer would be able to pick it up and get it, right? Or get their attention to actually get them to pick it up. Transparency and clean labels are critical. Things I'm noticing recently is like seed oils have become like it's not banned, but I'm noticing that that's something that they tend not to approve as much when we're presenting. Purpose driven, so mission based values. So really important. This, I think a lot of brands, when I see their decks, they don't tell the story of how they got started. Like, what was that? What got you started? That got you in this mission and purpose that then caused you to have this product. That story matters at this stage for innovation. So I don't think if you have a 10-minute presentation, maybe a minute at least is spent on that origin story of how you got here. In a way, they're investing in you as much as the brand, right? Do they believe in you? Are you going to show up? Who are you? Do you really believe in this? Um, Noticing a commitment to sustainability, increasing interest in recyclable packaging coming up. also just innovative packaging ideas as well, and that people side as well. So passionate, knowledgeable founder. I've seen brands that were less developed in packaging, and the founder fully showed up in an amazing, passionate way, and they were accepted. So it's like a blend of all these things coming together is what I've seen in terms of driving success to get that opportunity to be an innovation set.
And one thing I want to mention about the packaging, I think it's so important because this set is in the middle of the store. People don't have the context about what your product is. It's not like,
Yeah,
oh, we're a fruit juice and we're next to all the other fruit
there's
juices. So
no
people know what it
context.
is, even if it's not obvious
Yeah.
from my label. Like I've talked to some brands that did it and they're like, yeah, I would do much better on the main shelf because then people know what this is. They're just like walking up to this set and here's some random product. They don't understand it. So I think that's why it's especially important to have like nice, simple packaging. I remember seeing Just
Hmm.
Iced Tea on it right
Hmm.
near when they launched and it was cleaned out. Like they were all gone because it's such an obvious product. Like this is iced tea and it's cool and
Yep.
it's new and it's gone. And everyone cleared
Yep.
it out. So just like to
Yeah.
share that.
Yeah, absolutely. We see a lot of uh brands coming from D2C or from Amazon, and I just encourage, I'll just a side note is that I really encourage brands coming from D2C and Amazon to really consider your packaging. It's oftentimes about an aesthetic on your home shelf versus like the work that the brand packaging needs to do to get a consumer, to get their attention, get them to be curious about it, to know what it is, and then know why they want to buy it. Like, it's really important that we're considering those when trying to get item in any retail setting. So let's go. So let's talk about distribution. So do you have options? I get asked this question all the time, Daniel, and it's like, yes, generally you do. Sometimes you might be told it's one or the other. Kahi and Pod are in general the ones I like to use. I had a brand who used Unify recently, and it seemed like Unify wasn't doing as much work with the innovation set, so the product got lost at a number of the stores. So I tend to recommend Kahi and Pod and as the options. KeHE historically has been more opaque in terms of understanding what the costs of doing business are, and there's often a lot of stress for a young brand in working with them. And I'll just say Pod in general is very friendly. They're upfront about all their costs. I've never heard of a gotcha type of situation happening from a Pod. So given the option, and you're a less sophisticated brand, by definition you're emerging. If you're trying to go there after the innovation set, Pod can be a really good option. They're also really easy in the setup process. It's a much faster process. And I'll just share one more thing about KeHE. KeHE is trying to do better, and they are doing better. In fact, they have a couple things going on. Number one is the new AAP program, which you pay 2%, basically an ongoing forever off invoice. While you are, I think it's like if you're in your first year at KeHE, under a 500,000 in total sales running through them, you can skip out on like the opening OIs and the setup fees to a great extent. So just strong plaudits to I guess it's really applause to KeHE for how they're showing up. And there are sometimes, and it's not always the case, but I've noticed recently there's a special KeHE P&P that's for the innovation set that accomplishes the same thing as that 2% AEP program. So if you're going KeHE, there are some options that are better than there used to be. You might still choose Pod just because there's you can really understand what it costs to do business with Pod overall better because it's very simple program. So if you're doing a regional launch, I believe KeHE's starting to do some of those for innovation, but I believe up until recently at least, all regional innovation launches have been through Pod. And again, that might be changing going forward.
And maybe just one thing also to mention, like Pod, maybe, yeah, maybe you could get set up with them easier, get out like
Mm-hmm.
Feezer, but also like you want to think about your overall scalability as a brand, which is something that people
Mm-hmm.
would look at KeHE for because KeHE hits
Yeah.
so many retailers across the country, and this can actually be a way to open up a bunch of DCs since they have to open Phoenix and like a bunch of other places to get you into this program. So just good to consider all of the benefits.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And to clarify, like you could start up that pod and eventually switch over to KeHE, right? I think like if I think about pod and the value they bring is like getting to market fast. And I don't, and, knowing Peter G over there, he's told me it isn't about like being with them forever, but it's a great, they're really aimed toward the innovative startup brand. Very good. So let's move on. This can I make money? There's a post that my friend Kyle Kohler did from Wildway, where he talked about his time on the innovation set, and he talked about this like negative $11,500 that he lost in doing it. And I think that's a really good question. Is like, is the innovation set meant to be something where a brand can make money? And is that like what Sprout's intention is? And again, I'm just speaking for myself and what I'm aware of. It's not about that, or it's not about being profitable. I think you're getting an opportunity to test, early on at the second largest natural chain in America. Sprouts doesn't control your gross margin, your product margin, and things like that. And indeed, I'll talk more about it in some later slides. But there, if you really want to win, there are some levers you'll want to pull. I think approaching the innovation set as something that, hey, this is supposed to be a money maker is a misnomer, misunderstanding what the intention is, right? Like whether you make money or not is really first off dependent on your COGS, right? And your retail you're aiming for, therefore your product margin and gross margin. And then another point too is we've had some brands that have not needed to pull any financial levers, right? Any strategic levers to drive velocity of the product. It was great packaging at the right price. It was the right product in a growing white space, and they just succeeded and great. I mean, they didn't need to spend any money, right, to support it beyond getting it on shelf. And then there are brands that you need to pull some levers to make it happen. And so all these things are variables that, as I look at it, is not something that either makes the innovation set wrong or right, or Sprouts good or bad. It's really, every brand really taking that time to analyze like what this means for them. Something that our company does when we're working with people going to the innovation set, we have a model we built, and we model out like what the contribution margin is going to be from being on the innovation set, whether you're going with pod or KE, we can model both. And then we talk about the costs of the levers to pull, and then we put together a budget. And sometimes brands will lose money, sometimes they'll make money. But that really isn't the point here is not about that. It's about really having this amazing, beautiful opportunity to test an emerging brand on a national scale or in a regional scale if you choose a regional approach. And let's see, AP, I think I'll skip that one. Already covered that. And success. So what is the goal? The graduation rate from innovation to mainline set, when I first started working with Sprouts on innovation, was not as good as it is today. It has improved so much. I think that the selection process clearly is getting better. We're finding that 20 to 30% of brands today are graduating from the innovation to the mainline set, mainline distribution. And that's from when I experienced at the beginning, it's like a 2x plus improvement. And so you can see here that a brand has a greater than 50% chance of not making it to the mainline set. And we'll talk about some things you can do to help increase your chances of success. So I also want to clarify some things too. The Sprouts foraging team only approves you for the innovation set. They don't control what happens on the mainline set, right? They can recommend, they can influence. The category manager ultimately will determine whether you're included. And I'm often asked, like, was there a goal velocity I have to hit? If I hit that number, am I guaranteed placement? And as far as I know, my experience, there is not a goal velocity from the category manager. It's you really you so number one is you can ask the category manager, you might get a number, which is great, what you're aiming for, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you'll be in the mainline set afterwards. I've had there's a buyer change happening right now at Sprouts for a core buyer for a lot of the innovation brands. And now we have a new buyer coming in. That new buyer is not beholden to what the old buyer said in general. So it's something you have to be what I just say is like, let's just do our best. Let's just make sure that with the resources we have available, let's just make sure that we maximize that velocity. And we can, I can help you. You can certainly ask people like Brody and Laura at Sprouts and the innovation team, like, hey, what do you generally see as a number that allows a brand to move on to the next step of mainline? Just remembering that it's never a guarantee.
And also, can I just remind everybody, Luke, real quick, that you do work with brands on Sprouts. Obviously, you
Yep.
know them. And what's the best way, in case people like don't make it to the end or whatever, for them to chat with your team?
Oh, great question. So I think right here I have a QR code, so you can just take a picture of that with their phone while they're here, or they can just go to vdriven.com and they definitely can. I think there'll be a pop up and they can enter their email address and we'll reach out.
Okay, cool. And I'll just type the link for everyone in just vdriven.com as well. Cool. All right. Thank
Yep,
you.
you
Keep going.
you you got it. Yeah, all good, all good. So that's it. So I think Daniel that was one of your questions is like what is that goal velocity? I think we were talking about this, and it's just something that I know that in general for many types of beverages, if I'm seeing a 6 or 7 units per SKU per store per week, I know that generally is good. I know that a 2 or 3 is going to be on the edge, probably not. You can still
Yep.
submit. And by the way, if you don't win an innovation, you can still submit for a category review. But it doesn't mean that you can't go to the next step. I would just suggest if you didn't succeed at innovation and getting right into the mainline set, that you think about what you want to change. So when you show up and you say, "Hey, I didn't succeed. I learned from it. Here's what's going on." I think the other question I get too is, how common is it to go right from the mainline set, sorry, right from the innovation set to the mainline set? And I've never seen that happen. I've seen, a recent really strong brand that was on the shelf from October, November, December. And then we were working with the category manager in parallel, like a month and a half in, the velocity looked really strong. And then we did a shipper distribution into stores. I think we went into the deli for dry January. It was a non-alc product. And then we went submitted for the category review, which was in January, which will maybe be a May launch, which we haven't heard about yet. We've also seen brands take a year and a half sometimes to get in. So it's really something that's not guaranteed. And
Yeah,
I would,
that was a
and
question one person had in here is like, what can you get in a year later? Yes, right. You're like
yeah,
beginning a
yeah,
conversation. The review might be a long time later too, right? Reviews are staggered throughout the year.
they can. And another thing to know about Sprouts is that they hopefully give some people solace. A category manager, in my experience, in general, has the possibility of touching a set through what's called speed to shelf every 3 months, even if the review is once a year. So that's really unique compared to many other retailers that only touch their sets once a year or twice a year. Theoretically, some sets are touched 4 times a year. It's up to the category manager, up to their discretion. But it also that should give you hope is what I'm hoping to give you, that you could maybe move this along a little bit faster. If you performed really well, there's a reason for you to be looked at, putting it in sooner. That can happen. Let's talk about marketing strategy. This is core. This is the levers. This is where I spend most of my time when a brand is working with us after they get a yes. Number one, no TPRs. It's at the beginning of this whole program there were, and it was all confusing. So now it's just not a lot. Demos, and I'll have David talking after I present here about his demo company. But number one thing you can do in general, not for every product, but for most products, is get it in people's mouths. And where you can, maybe it's the A stores. Like if you have limited budget, right? Maybe you just focus on the best performing stores. Maybe if you have a bigger budget, A and B stores. If you have a massive budget, you're doing all stores ideally on the busiest day of the week. And so that's just core. Digital coupons. I've been asked that question. You totally can do digital coupons. Start planning those out 6 to 8 weeks at least in advance. Think about a BOGO, dollars off. I find with digital coupons, what's beautiful about them is that they go through the Sprouts app. So I'm actually targeting a Sprouts core consumer that literally like has the app and is looking at it when they go shopping, right? And if I think about like kind of planting seeds for the future when I hopefully make it in the mainline set, that's a beautiful thing. I also find that more aggressive coupons are effective. If they're less aggressive, I almost find that they're not, they really don't do much. What's also nice by digital coupons is you can, I think most of the companies doing it, you can do like a $5,000 budget. And when the $5,000 is reached, it pulls off, right? And so you can really manage your costs. The downside is, of course, you're funding 100% of the discount, plus you're paying a clip fee, processing fee as well. So but I often use that tool. Certainly social media. I have found that brands that have an audience, that have a community that they can leverage across the country to send them into stores, that is very valuable. Also working with influencers, micro influencers. You have influencer marketing here, geo-targeted ads I've seen used. And then Instacart is one that you should not ignore. In some departments, I hear from buyers that they're getting, some brands are getting 30% digital penetration, which means that 30% of the sales of the velocity of their product is being driven by Instacart. Isn't that crazy? And with Instacart, I can certainly target keywords that maybe people typing in for my against my competitor, or just like the general description of what I'm selling. And I've noticed more recently, you can actually do like deals through the system too. Like you can offer them a BOGO, and it's all funded through Instacart. So if you, in my mind, you ignore Instacart, your own peril. one of the things I often hear about Instacart is the challenge of, well, I don't see it at my local store when I go on Instacart. And what I don't know how the algorithm works, but I noticed that it seems like product needs to scan a couple of times or more before it shows up at Instacart. So just something for people to be aware of. It's not going to be perfect. And then there's like Social Nature and Aisle. Those are great tools. They're very effective. They can be a little expensive, and what I also worry about with them is when I downloaded Go to Aisle, I went and did like a scavenger hunt of stores I would never go to for a free product with my two younger sons. I thought that'd be so much fun. But I feel like digital coupons can be maybe a bit more effective done right versus like an Aisle Social Nature in terms of the cost effectiveness and planting seeds for the future with like the Sprouts consumer. So those are just things that I've noticed going forward. Dan, any questions on that?
No, I think just yeah, a lot of questions coming in about these ones. So in terms of the TPR, just so everyone knows, that's like when you're in a retailer and you do a 20% off
Oh
for two
yeah.
weeks or whatever,
Yep.
something like
That
that. So
shelf.
they
Yep.
don't let you mess around with that. They don't want to be like tagging all this stuff during 90 days. But at least when I did it, it was, hey, fund the whole time. We want you to do like a 2 for 3 or something like that, and we had
Yeah.
to pay for it. Are you still seeing that, or are they just being more reasonable on like a base price?
I think more reasonable on the base price, but I
Okay,
don't know enough to speak
sure.
intelligently about it. I
So
would
some
say,
EDLP, yeah.
yeah.
So
And
you
when I
basically pay it by the sorry EDLP, meaning they're going to be like, okay, that's how much you are. Here's what we chill it for. Like we want this
yeah.
margin.
Yep.
Maybe give us a little bit
Yep.
more
Yep.
money, and
Yep.
here's the price
Yep.
for the 90
Yep.
days.
The negotiation, what I've experienced, correct. I also like when I'm working with a brand that I feel has like they hit it right, right? It's the right product, right time, right price, the right market opportunity. I'm not going to go pull all these levers, right? I'm going to pull fewer of them. And generally, so this is maybe strategy. So the strategy for me is I look at 3, 4 weeks in. I give a chance for that velocity to mature, and then I'm like, okay, by hitting the target that I believe I need to hit to win, and if I'm not, then I can go pull it and go to aisle pretty quick or a social nature, right? I can do more demos right away if I need to, right? And so I just
Yeah.
oftentimes if I sense I have something really good, I'll press that gas pedal a little lighter. If I sense there's gonna be more of a challenge and uphill battle, I'll press that gas pedal harder from the
And how are you
beginning.
going to know though after 3, 4 weeks? Like you
Oh, what's
probably
great
have
is
that data.
you get data every week, which
Oh,
is
you do in the
fantastic.
program. Oh, that's
Yeah.
new.
Yeah, not guaranteed. And I my experience is every week I get an email from Sprouts with all the brands that are on the innovation set. And if you're on it, I believe you get that data.
Okay. There's yeah, and I've seen a couple interesting comments in the chat here. Blake said like their kind of unofficial target was 2 to 3 velocity, but also they didn't have any say in the pricing. I hope that means you weren't funding some random pricing also.
Yes.
Um, And yeah, I mean, yeah, the Instacart stuff is really nice because that actually will get you loaded up on Instacart. I
Hmm.
think like the ROI always kind of looks good there, but also like if sometimes it's like cannibalizing sales if you're at a
It
retailer
could be. It
permanently
could
because they're
be.
like, oh, I'll just click. Oh yeah, that's what I want. Let me click it. Like, oh, sure.
Yes, and you're
Maybe they're
paying
gonna
for
find you
it.
anyways, but generally people like it a lot. I also put in the chat here if anybody wants to reach out to hummingbirds. It's a cool thing where you can like pay for them to send like millennial moms into the store, buy your product, and then they
Yes.
post about it to their friends, like, just to their communities and stuff. So I put Kelly at hummingbirds.com in case you want to email her in there. And yeah, I think
Oh,
these
yeah.
are all. And by the way, I'm logging everyone's questions. I have a bunch that we're going to fire through at the end. So
Okay.
keep them coming, especially in the Q&A button.
Okay. Fantastic. And I think we can pause there and then we can move. David, if you have your deck ready, I will stop sharing. And then I'll leave this on for like 20 seconds as a QR code if you'd like to chat. And
Awesome.
stopping
So
sharing now.
QR code or vdriven.com.
You got
And then
it.
just to reintroduce David, because I know we have like 300 people on now, a lot of people joining throughout. So David runs Grassroots, which is a national demo agency. They're a partner of Startup CPGs. I'll put in the chat here, they have a special negotiated rate with us. They have national coverage. They also are the preferred one for like Erewhon and a bunch of other places. And they have a special discount with Startup CPG. It's $180 for a 3-hour demo, and they can do co-branded demos if you want to try to manage the cost a little bit. So, David, let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, so let me just pull up my screen here. I got it ready. So to start off a little bit, I mean, that's a great kind of primer on what we do. We have worked in the natural industry just really quick for about 9 years now, almost 10, coming up on 10 in July. and doing, things like in the world of Whole Foods and Sprouts, supporting new brands and existing brands that are introducing new items, and letting them drive trial, gain learnings from actually, like boots on the ground, people talking to people, seeing what real customers think of your items in store, and cataloging all that information, and of course, selling product. So we have been doing that since 2015. And that's what we do on a national level now with retailers like Sprouts, Whole Foods, for brands that are all sizes, little brands that are just starting out, and big brands that have been in the space for a long time. So that's me, and that's my partner, Bridget, right there. You can see it. So planning demos. So look, so this is just a quick kind of primer on, what you're going to be looking for. So I'm just going to kind of go through these points really quick. And if you want to take a screenshot or anything, you go for it. But this is really just for all the brand founders out there, for people starting out. These are some good points that you might want to touch through. And these are the things that we handle if you work with us. So things like getting your food handler's license. Every state has those. All of our people have them. But if you do demos, you're going to need those. So you check with your locality, with your city, with your state to see what's the rules there. And these are the details that you should be thinking of, especially if you go into an innovation set that's national, because you're going to be going into a bunch of different states, potentially all the states that Sprouts are in, and all of them have different rules. Clearing your demos with the retailers at Sprouts, what this would really mean is just like, it takes a lot of boots on the ground work. I saw there was a question in the comments about merchandising. Is it necessary to have merchandising for an innovation set? I would say it is necessary to really, at least if you're not going to be physically present in the stores or have a team that's present in the stores, to really focus on like doing everything you can, calling stores, pushing broker partners, pushing field partners, to make sure that you are as aggressive as possible as making sure that your product lands on the shelf and stays on the shelf. To Luke's point, Sprouts' goal really is to have you sell out and to have your item win on their shelves. But getting on the shelf is the first step, and making sure that those stores hopefully reorder, if there's any room to do that you push them to do that as aggressively as possible. The store target list. So what this would mean is sort of those A and B stores. So depending on how aggressive you can be with your budget, and how much time you have yourself to support, this is where you're going to want to focus on those A, B, and C stores, but really the A stores and the B stores. This changes depending on your category. So for example, if you're a snack brand like a cookie, or if you're a protein shake, or if you're an energy drink, be mindful of the fact that your target demographics are going to be different, and you might have stores that are A stores for you that aren't A stores overall. So that's something to really be mindful of when you're thinking, okay, how am I going to support the stores myself personally? And for my partners, for my vendor partners, which stores should I focus the most support on? Because it's hard to get to all of them. You have to choose, really, especially in a 90-day program.
David, are you able to do presentation mode just so the slides appear bigger?
Yeah, here, let me go ahead.
Thank you. Just for some of us old guys.
Is that good?
It's still the same right now. You might have to switch what you're sharing. If you opened in presentation mode, maybe it makes you share the other screen. Sorry, everybody.
Let me see.
If it doesn't work, it's okay. We can just go ahead.
You can just do desktop and like maximize it. Is that any better, Daniel?
It's okay. Let's just go for it.
All right. Well, sorry if it's a little bit small, but so tying it into your promotional calendar, this is less relevant when it comes to an innovation set launch, but in general, this is something that you're going to want to always focus on, making sure that you tie into any existing promos. Take advantage of that. Now, really quick, this is the demo essentials. This is stuff that we cover, and these are things to think of whether you're launching at Sprouts or Whole Foods or anywhere. These are things that you're going to want to think about creating. You're probably already going to have some of these things, and this is what you're going to want to really look at in terms of like, how do we have a mindful way of presenting ourselves in store? Again, going back to what Luke said about like, there's a big difference between e-commerce and in-store commerce. And a lot of that has to do with presentation and how it looks, like how the items look online are going to be very different than in store. And that applies to marketing activations too. So what does that mean? That means that the fuller your table looks, there's an example right there of what it looks like when a table has everything. When you throw the kitchen sink at it, you have table runners, physical coupons, one pagers that are customer facing. You have the items themselves and even things to hold the items that are branded. So this is where you can kind of go crazy. You want to at least have, everyone asks me, what is the minimum that you should have? You should definitely have one like customer facing sales sheet. Should definitely have maybe something small, like a postcard that customers maybe can take away with maybe a recipe, a QR code, anything on that to give a little bit more information about the product and to make the table a little more full. And then small things that are easy to produce, things like a magnet or stickers or little like items that add a little flavor to the table. And then table runners. These are things that cost around anywhere from $70 to $90. You can see an example in the photo here. And that is going to allow you to kind of just have a very bespoke looking table, something that looks like it's custom and something that makes it look like you're not just there standing behind a generic, black table, just presenting any other item. That makes it look like we're there for you, making sure that if you hire ambassadors, that they have food safety locked down, things like allergy signs, be right back signs in case they step away from the table. And of course, certificates for serving food. These are little details, but they're important. And you never want to have an incident at a store and feel like you're not covered. So that's relevant whether you have an agency or in-store support that you hire directly, or even if you do it. And then the basics, these are things that normally with us, we cover, and with any agency, they should hopefully be covering for you. Things like sample stickers to denote which product is for samples, sales sheet holders, serving trays, ice bins, cups, spoons, whatever makes sense for your item, something to take care of that and present that in a palatable way to customers. Okay.
David, sorry, I didn't catch this, but we're still seeing the planning your demos slide.
Oh, really?
Sorry about that. There we go. All right, everyone get a good look. Sorry about that, guys.
Here, let me switch it back to here. Can you see it?
Yes, now I see demo essentials.
Okay, great. Okay, so that's it. If anyone wants to take a screenshot or anything like that, that'll be there. But
and these are, I think we're going to email out your slides as well, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
everyone will have this as like a reference. These are great things, whether you're doing an agency or yourself. So just something to keep in mind. Agency or in-house, this is kind of touching on those different options that Luke had gone over. There's a lot of different ways to reach shoppers out there. There's a lot of things that you can do to get to customers in stores. So for demos specifically and merchandising, this is something where you're going to be handling a certain amount of this yourself, and you're going to be handling a certain amount of it probably with outside help. For in-house training, like your own reps, your own team, just keep in mind that you're going to have to start the process. If you have an innovation set launch coming up in July or September, you're going to want to start planning that now. Whether if it's an agency, maybe you can get away with a little bit of a shorter timeline, but even so, you're going to want to really be thinking in a 4-month in advance timeline, just to make sure that by the time you're ready for launch, everything is ready to go. And that's the last thing you need to worry about, because there's going to be a ton of other things that are going to be going with just making sure that the product is in the DCs and on the shelf. They're going to be more important at that time. So this is just something to think of when you're hiring help from outside or in-house. Something just to really be mindful of is that you want to have as much lead time as possible. There are some brands that have reached out to us that are already in the innovation set and already launched and are looking to get help arranged as fast as possible. And something like this can add a lot of stress to your life because obviously, your item is already on the shelf. The time is ticking. You want to have this really locked in ahead of time, like well in advance. So that's just something to consider whether you're going the agency route or in-house. And keep in mind, the agencies will take care of a lot of the things that in-house you're going to have to handle. So you'll need more lead time if you go in-house.
David, let me ask you, when we were planning demos, I'm like, I can't afford demos in every store. I want to hit the big ones because I believe the buyer is not going to look at the velocity at every single store. They're going to look at the total sales, divide it. I'll have better velocity if I can hit it hardest at the biggest stores, really crush the numbers out. How can you know what stores as a brand, like you probably know, because you've been doing demos in a lot of them, you can probably tell me, hey, here are the ones that are the highest velocity based, like, is it, in specific regions that we can hit really well, and then the stores within those regions? How do you typically see brands figuring out how to prioritize? Do they get store lists, like all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the brands have even asked their brokers for specific store lists for their items. So if I'm like a specific type of category, they're asking their brokers, what is an ABC list for me? Is there any way you can drill down on that? And then focusing maybe only on the top, A stores or the top 100 stores, to give everyone an idea of the levels of support that we see normally. If you want to make a big splash, a lot of brands will do like a minimum of at least 50. If you get a national launch, figure you're going to be probably in at least 300 stores, 300 locations. You're going to want to support a meaningful number of those. It is a big opportunity to get into the innovation set. It's not a chance that every brand gets, and it's not a guarantee of success. But keep in mind, a lot of brands that go on the shelf, maybe they don't support it as aggressively as they could. So it's a choice to make when you get into the set. How many of those stores are you going to focus on? And you do really want to focus on your top stores, especially given that this isn't a mainline placement. You're not there forever. You just want to go to where the customer traffic already is. So we see brands focus on anywhere from 50 to 150 or 200 of the top A and B stores, really the top half of the locations that they get in. That's what you're probably going to want to do.
Yeah. And so ask your broker or ask the buyer, maybe if they'll give it to you, or ask in the Startup CPG Slack, and maybe one of these nice brands will post it for you, and maybe we'll figure out a way to share it around.
Absolutely. Yeah. And check with people who are in your category. If you have friends, other founder friends in the space, things like that, ask around. Everything helps. You want to do your best, and it's best to know before you go into supporting these stores that maybe aren't worth it. And that's pretty much it. I mean, in terms of analyzing the results, this is more relevant when you're in like main sets, because when you are in an innovation set, really the most important result you're going to get, it's not just sales, it's not about just performance. That is important, but you want to hear how people responded to the items. You want to hear what the level of enthusiasm was, how many people stopped by and tried your items. What were the positive comments? What were the critical comments? Did you run into any issues that were caught with the store merchandising, with the distribution? Was there stores that didn't have it or didn't order enough? Did they hear reports of you selling out in the first week? These are things you're going to want to hear. And there is an element of merchandising that happens at every demo, because a person is there talking to someone at the store, checking just for your item on how it's doing and how people are responding. So when you analyze the results, take that into account, and really, this is a chance for you to really see what people are saying about your product in an unfiltered way, and they're totally unexposed to your item. So this is like an authentic first impression that they're giving you. So that's something that customers don't easily offer up if you're like online or in any other format. And that's a big advantage, getting out in front of people and getting them to try your product in sort of a risk-free environment like a demo. That's pretty much it. If you want to get in touch with us, I put a little QR code here at the end. So if you want to contact us, just to talk about strategy, if you have an upcoming launch at Sprouts or anywhere, we'd be happy to assist and just chat about how we can get a demo support arranged for you.
All right. And I've got in the chat here, I put the link so you can schedule a call directly with David. And I also put, so they have the Startup CPG rate. If you use the link that I put in here, it'll take you to that 180 for 3-hour demos. And they also have the co-branded options with us for 125 for 3 hours, which like cheaper, awesome. You won't, obviously it's split. So you're splitting the person's time as well as what they're pitching consumers. So, good to consider the pros and cons of each, but we see a lot of questions on those. So, okay, we got a bunch of questions to get through. I'm going to see if we can I'm going to summarize some of them. I'm going to pass to you guys for some of them. First question, people are asking a lot about what's on the set. Like, I've not seen alcohol in there. I've never seen any part of the set include frozen or refrigerated. I've never seen it include
it's
like
definitely
beauty
ambient
products. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have seen there have been. Is it Lemmy? Is that one of the Kardashian companies? Like that was on there. There's another health and beauty one on the shelf right now. So really the limitations. You're right. I haven't seen alcohol. Doesn't mean there hasn't been, but I've never seen it. And beyond that, it's just shelf stable is everything that I see there.
Okay, store count. Yeah, they don't have this set in every single store. Like in LA, there were, I don't know, 10, 11 stores, and 3 of them did not have this, the new for you innovation set. So
a lot of the oldest stores and the smallest stores are located in Southern California from the old Henry's days, right? And that is true. I think it's the numbers I've seen are like 380 to 400-ish, and they're adding new stores like almost every week. So I think they're up about 440 right now.
okay. Okay, answered a bunch of these ones. Are there only 2 distributors? Can you use something besides KeHE and Pod Foods to get into this?
Again, I had a brand that used Unify, and I'm not I don't know this for sure, but I just sensed my hypothesis is that sorry, my cat just came in with a bird in her mouth. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
dramatic.
Hero. No.
Okay. Okay, let me
Um,
open the door, let it go to my
so
bedroom with
proud.
it.
Yeah.
Um,
All
sorry,
right.
what was the question again?
Is that's a good omen. Everyone's gonna like crush it on this set.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
what about cleaning supplies? I haven't really seen. Someone's
I
asking
haven't
about
seen that. I haven't
RTDs,
seen it.
like
Ready to drink?
alcohol, cocktail
I haven't
cans.
seen alcohol. A lot of non-alc seems like it's there all the time.
Probably they can't even set like state laws. Probably would be kind of complicated. Okay, so a bunch more questions here to run through. First was around markdowns. So in my experience, yeah, like if you don't sell through all the product,
Mhm, yep.
then at the end they
Manager
actually,
special.
yeah, they
Yeah.
actually put it down at like, I don't know, $1 or
Yeah.
something, but we did not have to pay for that.
Yeah. And for clarity, this is actually a really important point that basically, assuming your product is merchantable, like you have no risk of that product's coming back to you,
Yeah.
no risk of markdowns or anything. That's another beautiful part of this program.
I was very
Nice.
scared when we signed the KE contract. It's basically like you're liable for all the inventory that we take. And then they ordered and they didn't pull all of it through to the stores immediately. And we're like, are we gonna have to pay for all this stuff? What's gonna happen? But then they ended up doing a second one and pulling all of it. And then they
Mhm.
paid to mark it down at the end, which was, I think, very, very cool of them because that would have been a huge, huge bill.
Yes.
Okay, submitting. How do we make this stuff happen?
Oh
I've
my
seen a lot of
gosh.
the comments in here. This is like the question of the day is like, well, how do you
Well,
get in?
you
Because
asked me this.
yeah,
You asked me
so
this, and I was like, I don't know because we just present when we're
Luke
there.
just knows them. So I think that's a good plug for Luke. And again, if you want to talk to him, it's just vdriven.com. I just put it in the chat here. This is mainly what I just have seen because I asked in the chat, hey, how many people actually have gotten to talk to them? How did you do it? And I would say 2/3 of the responses were through brokers because brokers know them, they can
Yeah.
talk to them. A couple people said they submitted through the portal. So Sprouts has a
Hmm.
portal. If you're submitting for the reset, that's where you do it.
Yep.
And maybe they're just going to pull you in and be like, oh, this would actually be good for the set. They might contact you. Thirdly, Luke and I talked about this, like meet them at the shows. They are there. They were
Mm,
just at Fancy Foods in our section for a long time.
yep.
Everybody talked to them. They're nice people. They want to discover you. And then, man, hit LinkedIn. You know, that's what I do. Like, get them on there, send a nice message, be looking good, like your product stuff, like have nice posts. If anyone else has any other suggestions on that front, please post them here. Oh,
Yeah.
somebody else
Yeah.
just said they did an ECRM and got to meet them.
Right. They're definitely out in the world. Every show I go to in general, that I see someone from the team. And yeah, like the other part is like Vdriven, we're a broker, right? We do a lot of different things, but there's also if you have a broker that calls on Sprouts in general, they should be able to present to you to the innovation team.
Yeah. And
Um,
I will say just because I've had national brokers, I know lots of different ones. V-Driven's fees are friendly towards brands. So if
thank
you guys are thinking about it, like it's not like if you work with some of the other, like it's chill.
cool. Thank you.
Yes.
We
And
try.
he knows, I mean, he knows them. So that's what you want is the like broker who knows how to get you the meeting. Okay, more questions, just firing through these.
Let's do
What
it.
about this versus the regular shelf? Yeah, so you basically submit in the
Yeah.
portal for the regular shelf. You need to go into the portal to see when the review calendar is. You can probably,
Hmm.
go to Sprouts website or Google it or use our retail sales tracker to see the link for when that is. This stuff, they do it every 3 months. So you might not be right for the theme of a particular one.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes, by the way, we will present and it may not be accepted today, but it can be accepted in 6 months, right? For the innovation set even, right? Because
Yep.
they may be full. And I'm noticing now that when we present, things are being authorized for like more like July, August, and maybe going to September, October now, and it does fill up.
All right. And
And
then
there's
another
thousands of brands
question.
submitting.
Sorry.
Go
You
ahead.
get
Oh,
so
good.
excited
Please.
trying to get through all these. Keep
Let's
them
do
coming in
it.
the Q&A. I'm going to go through all those in a second too. These are the ones that I logged through the whole thing. Okay, next one, merchandising. A few people asked this. Should you be paying for merchandising? I saw it was on the Wild Way list.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you my experience, the product did actually not get on shelf immediately everywhere.
Hmm.
We were like
Yep.
looking, we're like, oh crap. Like, so I know
Yes.
David, you know
The
that can
answer is
happen.
yes, you should do it. If you have friends, family, if you can afford a merchandising company,
Yeah.
you can afford spot checks. Like we're in the stores all the time. find somebody to check those products at every store. If you,
Well,
I mean, the dream scenario is
yeah,
visit every store somehow,
Yeah.
because to Daniel's point, I guarantee that's happening to all the brands. It's normal. I mean, that's how it is. It's like, it's a fight to get on the shelf and stay
Yeah.
there. So
They
yes.
do look, the
yeah,
sets look pretty good. If you go, like, I go
Yes.
into a lot of stores and I see them and
yeah,
they are, I don't think you have to be like, oh, it's going to look like crap unless I pay a merchandiser. I think early
yeah,
on, it can be cool to make sure you actually get the, it's like, yes, it's
yeah.
there. The worst case scenario is you pay someone like David and then they show up at the store and the product's not there, right? Because like,
Right.
what are they going
That
to
is
do? Like sample your product and it's not there?
that is the worst. Do want to say that I work with a lot. I mean, our brokerage, we work with all the key natural retailers, and Sprouts, in terms of execution, operational execution of the stores, is best in class. Doesn't mean you don't want to use a merchandiser. If you have the money, like David said, absolutely. But I don't think it's mandatory. And you can also leverage like KeHE data, right? If you're using KeHE, go to the portal, and then say you're maybe 6 weeks in and you're noticing that some stores haven't reordered. That might be a void opportunity for you to be very focused on where you're sending people in. Maybe you choose to, call that store manager and talk about you coming in for a demonstration, in-store demonstration. And then, hey, I noticed that there hasn't been a repurchase. There hasn't been any repurchases since the initial plus out. And then they're just bringing it top of mind. I'm not saying that's the best way, but I think that's a way that could work.
Even a phone call can help a lot, guys, with the 20% of stores that maybe have an issue getting it on shelf faster. I mean, anything. That's cost.
Yeah. You could pay a robo-call or whatever,
Yeah,
get an
I mean, we've
offshore
done
worker
that.
to
We've
even pay,
we've called,
pay like $5 an hour probably for somebody just to call all the top
we've
ones.
done that for
Yeah.
stores just because it is a nightmare scenario to show up for a demo. I mean, and then there's nothing there, even if you called in advance, but it helps. It really does help.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also would just say, someone who's worked with Sprouts for a long time, since store 4, those people are busy. So like ideally, if you're using data to really understand where you have the problems and and it's sufficient for you too, to figure out where the problems are, that's what I highly recommend.
Okay, a couple more questions coming in. One, do you get a formal meeting with the buyer, like for the main set at the end of the trial or for this thing?
Okay, no, and not guaranteed. And you can certainly ask for one. Whether that happens or not, that's hard to know. Also, I should share something else is happening. I'm noticing more and more is that the category view structure for the mainline set is changing, and I've noticed that some bot category managers are doing like their own pitch slams. And they also will have the innovation team there, so that there's this option in the category view process where something can go to the innovation set or it could go to the mainline set. That seems to be a growing method I'm seeing in Sprouts.
And I'm hoping that we're going to get to do something cool with them. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you're checking out our events. Okay. And then someone else asked, is it not just like one case per store per SKU
It
or like,
varies.
yeah.
It varies. I've seen one case. I've seen 2.5. I've seen 4. Sometimes people have 6 count versus a 12 count versus an 8 count. I mean, it just varies.
Okay. Can you submit to both at the same time? When you go in the portal, is it even an option to click to submit for innovation set or you
You
just submit?
can.
Okay.
I noticed it recently that it's there. So in terms of both, I mean, one idea would be to maybe to submit to the mainline category view and then let the innovation team know you did that. I think they can
Yeah.
still pull it down.
Yeah. Don't miss your mainline
Yeah,
submission.
no. That'd be that. Unless you know you can't afford it no matter what. Unless you know that's not going to make sense for you.
Okay. I think we covered about the temperature classes. Unfortunately, yes, only dry. Okay,
And
this
I would
record.
say that there is, Daniel, a fresh fines cooler that David probably knows about, that they often are testing in the refrigerated space, dairy set, new items. And we've had some success there as well.
Cool. Okay, I'm just posting in the chat again. If you want to talk to David about the Grassroots national coverage Sprouts or anywhere else they're national, I put his link here in the chat. And then just probably a lot of you are pretty interested to talk to Luke as well. So you just go to vdriven.com and submit through there and they will set you up. And also a lot of you have continually asked if this recording is going to be available. And yes, it is. And if you subscribe to us on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@startupcpg, posting that as well, then you'll get notified when it goes live. And we will also email to all of you all of these slides because you registered. Okay, so I think we mainly have got to all the questions. Luke, maybe if you could scan the Q&A and just see if you think we missed anything. In the meantime, I'll just make a couple announcements here that I love to do when we have this many people on, which is Guys, check out our grocery run events. This is crazy. Last week we were in Whole Foods. We had 150 female founders fly in for this event. They all got to talk to the Whole Foods team. We had tons of buyers there.
Amazing.
We're going to be doing this around the country. I fly out. We have the retailer there. You guys get to sample there. It's cool. We're doing Go Puff in Philly on February 25th. We have this very epic one that you'll see announced soon on April 10th in San Francisco, where every SF retailer that you want to talk to is going to be there for this, as well as a major distributor. It's going to be like a fair. It's going to be crazy. And then we're doing Town and Country in Seattle. I am also going to LA for Gelson's on the 28th of April. So check out, you can go to startupcpg.eventbrite.com to see all these, or they're also announced in our Slack channel. And also we have opened up our applications for a couple trade shows. So our dedicated section at Fancy Foods New York is open, and also for Newtopia Now. If you go to our Slack channel announcements page, you'll see those. We try hard, we make them cool. Everyone has been having a good experience, so check those out. Luke, what did I miss?
Yeah, so what I saw is someone asked about categories, and this is very common because oftentimes we're at the cutting edge, right? Ideally, we are at the cutting edge with the innovation set. Is like, which category does something go into? We oftentimes are, does it go to superfoods? Does it go to produce? Does it go to bulk? And that's something that oftentimes the innovation team will help. They'll kind of survey the different category managers and the teams to see where something belongs. But just don't be surprised that that happens, but they don't even know. So in those cases, what I'll do is reach out to each of the category managers and just kind of gauge their interest from my side as this brand's broker. And then I also consider where I think it would like have the highest velocity and where it serves my brand the most. So this is a common issue that's been coming up recently is like, where does it go? Right.
All right, guys, so if you're not on our Slack, go to startupcpg.com and sign up. If that doesn't work, you can email our admin at community@startupcpg.com. Also, just really recommend you guys check out our podcast, because we will get this kind of info is going to be on there as well, and you can listen to it when you're walking or at the gym or something. And I think that's about it. Last question that came in that was interesting to me was about number of SKUs. Do you have to have a lot of SKUs? Like, because a lot of those, they all look good. You have like 5 SKUs, 6 SKUs, whatever.
Yes.
Can you only have 2? Can you only have 1?
No limit. And ideally, I don't want to have an orphan SKU if I can avoid it, unless the product is generally very big itself. But I haven't seen any limits.
All right. Okay, cool, guys. Thank you for all the questions. I'm sorry if we didn't get a very specific one, but you can reach out to Luke. Also, you can ask questions in our Startup CPG Slack, where you have 25,000 of your friends there. Probably one of them knows the answer. So thank you, everybody. The SF event, people just kept messaging me about, that will go live. So if you're in the Slack, you're going to see it. It's going to be you guys should all like fly in for it. David, let's see you there. Luke, let's see you there.
Let's do it.
All right. It's going to be amazing. Cool. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Luke, this was incredible. David, awesome. I feel like we, pulled the curtains back on a lot of stuff today. And thanks to the Sprouts team for all